Okay, this is where we left off in the last video. We had edited the model just to test whether it would draw things correctly. So let's change it back to what it was supposed to be. So we got zeros everywhere except for the middle. And save that. And refresh. Good. And I also want to show you how to do something cool with CSS to make it so that this isn't just a solid black color and a solid white color. There's something we can create called a radial gradient, which will fade from one color to another. So if you just go right here where it says disk.style.background color equals black, instead you could just assign it a background image with the value of this script here, this command that says radial gradient, and then it has a code for a color that's going 30% of the way, and then a color that goes 70% of the way. And then you wouldn't even need this line up here. So that looks like this. So it looks a little bit more like the actual tile now. And you can do the same thing with white. But let's change it to have the inside color be white and the outside color be the color code CCCCCC, which is a shade of gray. There we go. So whichever way you prefer. If you want to keep it the solid colors, that's fine too. But the real purpose of this video is to show you how to set up a control so that the user can interact with the program. And specifically, we want to make it so they can click on one of these tiles and have it draw a disk. So let's do that really quickly. Let's start by adding an OnClick function to each of these green squares. Okay, so right where we create the div element on line 50 here, and we start adding some attributes to the style and everything like that, we're also going to say green square.set attribute OnClick. And then right here we're going to put the name of a function that this is supposed to call whenever we click on that div. So let's just call it clicked square. And then we'll put parentheses. And we also need it to know which square was clicked. So we can do that by passing in the row and the column. But because we're constructing it as a string with these quotes, we're going to have to join each part of this together. So first we'll pass in the row. And we'll separate it with a comma. And then we'll pass in the column. If I stretch this out, it's a little easier to see. And now that I stretched the window out so it's not wrapping anymore, I can see that there's a problem here. So this text is joined to that variable, which is joined to the comma text, which is joined to that variable, but I forgot to put the plus sign there. I accidentally put it there. It shouldn't be there. Okay, so now it should look good. And let's create this function, the clicked square function, and let it take in a row and a column value. Okay, now at first let's just assume that wherever they click, they are allowed to go. So we'll just draw a disk of whatever color they are in the place they click. And it's really easy to do that now because we've synced the model and the view. So all we have to do is change the model and then redraw the disks. So let's say disks at position row, column, and we need to make it a 1 if it's black's turn or a 2 if it's white's turn. So let's just start with making it 1 and then redraw the disks. And let's test that out. So if I click here, it worked. It put down a black disk. And you'll notice wherever I click, it puts down a black disk. And that's because it's editing the model. Now it doesn't edit this, of course, because this is just the initial state of the grid. But the model, the data structure, is in fact changing and getting redrawn each time I call draw disks. So one thing we can do really easily right now is make it so it changes whose turn it is. Let's make it so it's not always black's turn. So right here, instead of saying 1, let's just say turn. And turn is a variable that I'm going to create up at the top. and I'm going to say turn equals 1 at the beginning because black is the one that goes first. But then as soon as this happens, we need to switch turn's value. So we'll say if turn equals 1, turn equals 2, otherwise turn equals 1. So let's test that. So first it puts down a black disk, and then it should put down a white disk. Hey, it looks like it works, so it switches between black and white. Of course, it's not actually flipping all the surrounded tiles yet. That's something we'll do in a future video. But as you can see, we have successfully set up the model, the view, and the controller. We just need to add some more functionality to